ago. She says, "I want to show you this bowling alley," and it couldn't be shown to the public yet. It hadn't met certain code things. Now it has, I guess. But there was just tons of really interesting things on that list too.
I'm sure. There's a ton of shit to do. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's
okay.
Again,
I've heard worse. I've said worse. Not as bad as his latest video.
Did you see my latest?
That is filthy.
which one?
It's not really filthy. It's not really filthy.
It was in honor of
Gilbert Godfrey.
Oh, I didn't see that. I must have missed it. I'll have to go look for it.
Yeah, you know where to find it, right?
Yes, I do.
Would you do me a favor? Would you
Sure.
make a plant? Because I'm going to Florida tonight, which I used to do before COVID.
Right.
For comments, if I ask a question and nobody
Yeah.
talking about the interconnections between different holidays and how links and connections are really important in drama, in fiction, in film. And I want to ask, why do people think those interconnections are so important? Why are links, why are interconnections important? And I don't know if people will.
Yeah,
I mean, I have some responses, like, it's
Give me one.
thematic connections, Rosh Hashanah and Kippur are connected because of the theme of repentance. So thematic connections, important storytelling, Passover is the story of Exodus and redemption.
Right.
That's the connection between Passover and Shavuot. But just in general terms, why is it important to link different events?
Okay, in other words.
And you have an hour, you have 45 minutes to think about it. 40 minutes.
No, I'm not good. I'm not good on my feet.
Well, you don't have to, I'm just,
You can sit down when you ask.
Oh, we should start. We should get started. Hi, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, it's time to start. Okay. Gordon, whenever you're ready. That is now a couple minutes slow, but you can wait a minute if you want. And remember, we're going to add the Amidah. Hi, Linda. Shabbat Shalom. I wish we had more people here, but it was pretty nice. Thank you. Let's move this out of the way.
Shabbat, El Yishmereini, Ki Yishmera Shabbat, El Yishmereini, Oti Leomead, Beino Uveini, page 129, Oti Leomead, Beino Shabbat, El Yishmereini, Ki Yishmera Shabbat, El Yishmereini, Oti Leomead, Beino Uveini, Oti Leomead, Yishmera Shabbat, El Yishmereini, Ki Yishmera Shabbat, El Yishmereini, Oti Leomead, Beino Uveini.
Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos to all of you. What a beautiful week we've had here in wine country. Things are falling apart all over the world, but I have to say it's been a really beautiful week. So it's been a nice distraction from the horrors all around us. And obviously we can't forget about that, but we also need to live our lives and enjoy the beauty of the part of the world that we do live in. I hope everyone has had a good week. I know we have at least one visitor tonight, so I don't want to embarrass you, but Susan, would you say a word about who you are and what brings you here? We put each other on the spot all the time here. And you're a friend of Sally's? Well, you're welcome anytime, and you come to us from the wilds of Fairfield, right? Okay, good. Well, welcome. And Jerry, Rolando, I haven't seen you for a little while, both of you. Great to see you as well. So we're going to start by lighting our Shabbat candles. So I'd like to invite Roberta Solomon to come up to the bima. Can I get that mic? Oh, okay. I would use those. If I didn't mention the blessings on page 120. I'll light them again if they go out again.
Okay, because I think they might. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
Baruch atah
Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We have not sung L'chadodi for a little while, so why don't we, I think many of you know that a lot of the songs on Friday night in the beginning, Shalom Alechem, Yedid Nefesh, L'chadodi, are pretty recent songs in the context of our 6,000-year-old religion. They were written in the Galilee by a group of mystics, none of whom were over 40 or 45, and they continue to be a huge part of the Friday night Kabbalat Shabbat experience, no matter what tradition you come from, Ashkenazic, Sephardic, Bukharan, and L'chadodi is arguably one of the most famous. So let's turn to L'chadodi. Which stanzas do you want to do, Gordon?
We'll do first 1, 2, 8, and 9.
Okay, on page 138.
L'chadodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad hishmiyanu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad Shem u'tiferet v'litila L'chadodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela L'chadodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat l'chuvanelcha ki mekor habracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh v'machshavat techila Lechadodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. 8. Yamin usful tifrotiva et Adonai partive Adiad ish ben partive nismacha benagila lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Rise if you can, and we'll face the entryway. Boi v'shalom ateret balahagam b'simcha uvetzoholatoch emune am segula. Boi chala, boi chala, lechadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela, lechadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela.
Please remain standing if you are able. We're going to turn to 144. We have not done the Chatzi Kaddish for a little while, but let's try it again tonight before we go to the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. I had a professor in Los Angeles who said whenever you see a Kaddish, whether it's a Chatzi Kaddish or a Rabbi's Kaddish or a mourner's Kaddish at the end, think of it as a semicolon, because the Kaddish in all its various manifestations really represents a separation between one section of the liturgy and another. So this particular one on page 144 separates the candle lighting and all of the initial Kabbalat Shabbat songs from the actual beginning of the service, which is the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. Which is why if you ever go to an Orthodox synagogue, this is the moment when people actually start getting serious about worship, because all the other stuff ahead of time is not obligatory according to Jewish law. So when I lived in Brooklyn for many years, and I would often go to traditional minyans, this is the time when people would kind of get their acts together, stop talking and schmoozing, and really get serious about prayer. So Gordon, would you like to do it, or would you like me to do it? I know we haven't done it for a while.
Well, we'll just
I'd prefer to you to do it.
You mean chant it?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll begin it. We'll all join in, right?
Yeah, please join us if you know it.
Yitkadav yitkadash shmei rabba B'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'cha yechon u'vyom echon U'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael Ba'agala ba'agala U'vizman kahariv V'imeru amen Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lom me'almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha barichu le'eloah min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiram b'yama v'imiru amen.
Page 146.
Lai la 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 Lai la 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 Lai la 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 Lai la 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 Lai la 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 Lai la 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 Lai la 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 Lai la 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 Barechu et Adonai Hamevorach לעולם ועד. המבורך, המבורך, לעולם ועד.
Page 149. Please join me together in English for the translation of Ma'ariv Aravim. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. 151. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam la'od hayadecha v'hayu latotafot b'neinecha u'ktabtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha Leman tiskaru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liod lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Page 157. Emet ve'emunah kol zot. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, but that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 158.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Norah oseh, Norah oseh, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Malchutecha ra'u banecha, בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש.
Please join me at the top of page 161, and let's read the English together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Hamidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
Please turn to page 164 and rise for the Amidah. In keeping with our minhag, we're going to do our custom. We're going to do the first two blessings together and then continue on our own silently. When you have finished, please be seated.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומחיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. 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 כי אתה הוא מלך האדון לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך האדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב, ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך, בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב, ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב, ישראל עמך תשים לעולם.
We take time now in our service to think of those in need of healing on this Shabbat, healing of body, healing of spirit, and healing of heart. And we ask God to bestow the bracha, the blessing of refuah shlema, full and complete healing on the following men and women from our CBS family or those known and loved by our community. Lynn Feingold, Ilana Massey, Kevin Brackett, Michelle Camisia, Joshua Hyman, Dylan Bonnick, Diane Butler, Elsa Loach, Michael Edwards, Jesse Friedman, Scott Stern, Tom Sabo, Yolanda Galaz, Beverly Eigner, Carl Rice, Michael Kasson, Ed Eston, Roger Widman, and Marjorie Gilberg. And if anyone has a name they wish to add, please do so. The Mishaberach is on page 511.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Labotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos again, and welcome, Susan. As I think most of us know, Passover ended last weekend. We had a beautiful celebration here a week ago, last Friday, on the penultimate day night of Passover. And we're in this strange period now known as the Sfirat HaOmer. Anyone know how that translates? The counting of the Omer. We are in that period of 7 weeks, of 7 days, from the end of Passover to the beginning of Shavuot. Now, both Passover and Shavuot were originally pilgrimage festivals. Anyone remember what the third and only other week-long pilgrimage festival was or is? Sukkot, the Feast of Booths. Thank you. So these were originally pilgrimage festivals where people from all over the ancient Near East would bring their animals, bring their families, go to the temple in Jerusalem, and offer sacrifices through a priesthood to God. 2,000 years ago, when the Romans destroyed the temple, slaughtered the priesthood, and wiped out the biblical way of being Jewish, the rabbis were able to reinvent Judaism and to turn these ancient pilgrimage festivals into agricultural festivals, related to the seasons in Israel. And those are the ways the holidays have been passed on to those of us living in the diaspora. Passover is known as the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Shavuot is known as the Feast of Weeks. Passover celebrates the time of our ancestors' liberation from bondage as slaves in Egypt. Shavuot celebrates our time of revelation, when the Israelites received the Ten Commandments and the covenant from God at Mount Sinai. As some commentators have pointed out, Passover in many ways represents the physical birth of the people of Israel. And yet, Shavuot represents the spiritual birth of the people of Israel. And you could argue in many ways, though there is a people of Israel in the book of Exodus, it's not until the revelation at Sinai that Judaism as a religion really first is born. Now, these two holidays, Passover and Shavuot, are linked by these 7 weeks of 7 days, this period of the counting of the Omer. But other holidays and holy days in Judaism are linked. Rosh Hashanah is linked to Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is linked to Sukkot. Yom HaShoah, which we just observed here Wednesday night, is linked to Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day. And anyone who's ever been to Israel during that time, and I lived in Jerusalem for 2 years, you can feel that interconnection between the mourning of Yom HaShoah and the celebration of Yom HaAtzmaut. Now, we know from secular culture that links and interconnections are vitally important in fiction, in drama, in film, but they are also critical components in the architecture of organized religion and religious calendars. So the question I want us to wrestle with tonight, and because of COVID, it's been about 2 years since we've actually passed the mic around to those in the congregation and had a dialogue about the subject at hand. But what I want to hear from you tonight is, why is this the case? Why are links, why are interconnections so important in the narrative of Jewish life? Now, I have a few thoughts, but I'd like to hear from any of you. Why is it so important that these holidays be linked in some way, shape, or form, rather than just standalone, one-off events that have no relationship to one another? Why are links so important? Any thoughts? I mean, you can bring in examples from secular culture as well. Roberta? And just speak right into the mic.
Well, aren't Passover and Shavuot linked by Exodus?
Yes.
By the book of Exodus.
They're linked because they both occur in the book of Exodus. That's right.
Right.
And in fact, most of the holidays, most of the biblical holidays occur in the book of Exodus, although some occur a little bit later, but the majority are in the book of Exodus. So in some ways, you could say that the book of Exodus is a capsule of many of the different holidays. So that's one way that they're linked. They occur in the same place. Linda, why are links between these holy days so important?
Well, I'm going to go back to humanity, to birth. When each of us are born, we hopefully form a link with those who are taking care of us. And that's our first experience of being linked to something outside ourselves. And then as we grow and mature and become more aware of the world around us, links guide us in school, etc. Now, I don't know that I have an answer regarding Judaism per se, because there are links in the Muslim religions and Christianity and all. I think that links are important to being human and human growth.
Okay, good. Thank you. You know, I mentioned the Chatzi Kaddish earlier, which serves as a kind of semicolon or a link between different sections of the liturgy, different sections of the prayer book. And I think, we hear a lot about transitions and how someone might have given a speech or a sermon, and there were no transitions, there were no links the speaker just jumped from one subject to the other. So I think these links, these transitions, are really, really important, especially when we think about the holidays. Other thoughts. One thing that I think about are thematic connections. So if you think about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, what are some of the themes that link those two holidays that bookend the days of awe? You know, they're called the days of awe for a reason, because they're not discrete individual holy days. They're connected together when we make an internal pilgrimage. So what are some of the main themes of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Kathleen, go ahead. Teshuvah. Teshuvah, would you translate that?
Return, like the song Return, Return Again. It's a major one. And renewal and I'm not sure about Rosh Hashanah. But anyway, re-strengthen your links to Judaism spiritually, I think.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I would agree. Renewal, return, repentance, tshuva, those link Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I would also suggest that introspection, prayer, community are critical pieces of the high holy days. Think about the very first action. Forget about words. What's the very first thing you're supposed to do at the very end of Yom Kippur before you even break the fast? Go ahead. I don't need this. Build a sukkah, right. Well, literally drive the first nail into the sukkah. You're going to be hungry at that point. You don't have to build the entire sukkah, but you drive the first nail into it. Good. What about Yom HaShoah and Yom HaAtzmaut? What are some of the themes of those? I don't know if I would call them holy days. They've also are new observances that didn't exist until World War II and then 1948. What are some of the themes, Sally, of Yom HaShoah and Yom HaAtzmaut?
Well, it's my understanding that Yom HaAtzmaut actually what preceded Yom HaShoah when they first became a state, but then the Knesset realized that overshadowed Yom HaShoah, and that the Yom HaShoah was the death and the other is the birth.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know the exact year that Yom HaShoah started, and actually I don't know if it was as a result of legislation from the Knesset or some other body. It was not a rabbinically designated holiday. These are national holidays, not religious holidays. But I think you're absolutely right. You know, there is this connection between the two, certainly if you live in Israel, between death and life, between the horrors of the Holocaust and the celebration of Jewish survival, which is what Yom HaAtzmaut is ultimately about. One other thing I would point out, unless there are other comments here, is the idea of storytelling. We need links, we need connections between these different holidays if we're to tell our stories, our myths, in a compelling way. Now, what is the great myth of the book of Exodus? You know, and arguably the great myth of the Jewish tradition, the story of Exodus and redemption. That's what the Haggadah is all about. That's what we celebrate on Passover. And yet that's also part of the morning, afternoon, and evening liturgy. It tells the story of creation, of Exodus, and redemption. That is our great mythic narrative. That is our great story. And none of them really make any sense alone. But they do make sense when you read them all together, when you celebrate them all together as a whole. And then finally, I would just say the idea of making meaning. We make meaning when we look at the calendar, not just as a series of unconnected days, but as something that makes sense, something that grounds our lives. You know, if you think of the American calendar, whether it's Labor Day or Memorial Day or the 4th of July, we often structure our holidays. We structure our family time. We sometimes structure the way we feel on those days because they give us meaning. And I think for those of us who take the Jewish calendar seriously, even if we don't resonate with each and every obscure ritual and observance that make up the calendar, I think we can add meaning to our lives in a very deep and profound way that I think we lose if all we do is intermittently come to services on the high holidays or light a menorah at home or come, once in a million years to a Friday night service. Those are all important, but I think living by the Jewish calendar and those who have chosen Judaism, those who have converted to Judaism, I think, have a strong sense about how important it is, even if only for 1 year, to observe all those holidays and see how they're connected in a rich and thematic and meaningful way. So I appreciate your thoughts. I hope you'll look at the holidays in a different way, and we have a couple of wonderful observances coming up for Shavuot when we get to the end of this counting of the Omer period. We are going to continue now with the Aleinu prayer on page 586. Again, if you are able, please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. I have the honor of calling again to the Bima board member Roberta Solomon.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, announcements. Tomorrow, join Rabbi Goldstein to study Torah here at CBS or on Zoom at 10:30 in the morning. This Sunday, religious school will be held at 9:30 a.m., followed by our community Yom Ha'atzmaut barbecued picnic. If you have not RSVP'd, you can still do so online. Next week, Shabbat will be led by Gordon, Nadia, and Shane Soldinger. There is no religious school on Mother's Day, May 8th. Please make sure to mark your calendars for the annual CBS member meeting in person at CBS Monday, May 9th at 7 p.m. And I just want to stress that that's very important, that we have a quorum there to make sure everything goes as planned. Soul Sisters will be reviewing, oh my goodness, A Paragon by Colum McCann on May 16th with Martha Pascan at 4 p.m. on Zoom. And please mark your calendars for May 20th, Lag BaOmer Shabbat with a bonfire oneg. That sounds very fun. You can RSVP online or via the calendar at any time. Sounds like a fun time. Finally, if you have not bought your tickets for Comedy Night, please make sure to do so as they are selling out quickly. You may also pre-purchase wine, beer, or sparkling water when purchasing tickets to see our two comics for the night, Jeff Applebaum and Rachel Berman. Then lastly, it's the last chance to apply for Camp Havarin scholarships, and that date would be May 1st, so that is Sunday, I think, right? And lastly, we'd like to give warm wishes to this week's birthdays and anniversaries. Happy birthday to Naama Abramovich, Guy Sandler, Tucker Caitlin, Heidi Soldinger, Leona Rice, Theodoro Soldinger, Josephine Soldinger, and Barbara Balick. And happy anniversary to Henny Cohen and Lee Trucker. It's their 38th. Thanks, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Our thoughts now turn to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We remember those who have died during the past 12 months. Bonnie Kapeloff-Mamie, Dr. Ian Miller, Jimmy Rabb, Sandra Somik, Michael Gordon, Larry Elson, Arnold Trombler, Erica Cornelison, Gladys Shubin, Richard Magano, Clark Smith, Stephanie Rabb-Axner, David Ernesto Kaplan, Pat Pate, Annette Goldberg, Maggie Sherman, Sandra Banco-Fichtenberg, Nicholas Huff, George Montano, Dean Wilson. We also remember and honor the Yartsites, the anniversaries of the deaths of William Schwartz, Harry Lieberstein, Morris Levy, Peter Davidson, Hazan Yehuda Keller, Mortitza Day, Harry Conry, and Irving Altman. And if anyone has a name they wish to add, please do so. The mourner's Kaddish is on page 598. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah be'alma divrach hirotei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayichon v'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael b'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'almei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitadar v'yitanaseh v'yitadar v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha b'richu La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace grant peace to all those in mourning and comfort to all those who are bereaved. And let us all say, amen. Please be seated. We are going to, a few people have asked to do the long version of the Kiddush, so we're going to do that in a moment along with the Motzi. But first we're going to turn to our final song. And Gordon, what are you going to sing for us tonight?
You mean what am I going to lead?
What are you going to lead us in?
Everyone in
Yes.
singing with me on?
Yes.
How about Cherubim, page 639? See if everything's on here. Okay. Als ik wil zingen, Chadodi, we all go, oi. Zoals du zingen, we sing, Chiri biri bim. Als ik wil zingen, likrat kala, oi. Zoals du zingen, Chiri biri bam. Lechadodi, chiri biri bim. Lechrat kala, chiri biri bam. Lechadodi, likrat kala, oi. Chiri biri 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 bum. Chiri bim, chiri bum.
bum, cherry bum, cherry
bim,
cherry bim bum bim bum, cherry bum, cherry bim, cherry bim bum bim bum. I cherry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry bim. A sick will singing lechadodi. Oh, that's your part. So to singing cherry berry bim. A sick will singing likrat kala. So to singing cherry berry bum. Lichadodi cherry berry bim. Likrat kala. Lichadodi likrat kala. Cherry berry 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 bum. Cherry bim. Cherry bum. Cherry bim bum bim bum bim bum. Cherry bum. Cherry bim. Cherry bim bum bim bum bim bum. I cherry berry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry berry bum. Cherry bum. Bim. Cherry bim bum bim bum bim bum. Bim. Bum. Cherry bim bum bim bum bim bum. I cherry berry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry berry bum. I cherry berry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry berry bim bum bum. I cherry berry bum.
I think we should sing that at our Shavuot Tish in a
Sure.
few weeks. This is what happens when a song like Lechadodi gets into the hands of Eastern European peasant Jews like my ancestors. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
And it's in Yiddish,
And a minor key.
in a minor key. Okay, we're going to do the Kiddush and Motzi, and you can follow along. We're going to do the longer version of the Kiddush tonight on page 123. So please rise.
Yeah. Do you know that part?
No, you can just do this.
Oh, we'll just start there. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pori hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kadsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zicharon l'maaseh bereshit. Ki hu yom tehila lamikraye kodesh, zecher l'tziat mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim. V'shabbat kadshecha v'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh hashabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
L'chaim. L'chaim toivim u'l'shulam. It's Hasidic. Actually, it's Polish. It means L'chaim tovim u'l'shalom. A good and a peaceful life. And let's do the motzi together. Do we have an oneg waiting for us?
Yeah, there is one.
There's an oneg behind us. So in anticipation of our oneg and our dinner, if you haven't had dinner yet.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'tei avon.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat